Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me again today. This is our 10th interview in the new Member Spotlight series that the Maryland Chamber of Commerce launched in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Whitney Harmel, and I am the Vice President of Membership and Development for the Maryland Chamber of Commerce and the Maryland Chamber Foundation. I am so pleased today to be joined by Mia Mastin of Pfizer. Mia T. Mastin brings more than 20 years of communications and government relations experience to her work as Pfizer's National Director, Advocacy and Professional Relations, where she is responsible for building, maintaining, and leveraging traditional and non-traditional partnerships on public policy issues of mutual concern. Mia is experienced in developing and leading external communication and reputation strategies for major corporations, government organizations, and associations. Her career has reflected her vision in various capacities, including the United States Senate Special Committee on Aging, the White House Office of Domestic Policy, and Walmart's Director of Community Affairs. In addition to her advocacy relations responsibilities, Ms. Mastin is certified as a Gallup StrengthsFinders coach, a fierce communication trainer, and as a life mastery consultant. Mia is driven to partner with conscious leaders and organizations to maximize their collective strengths, talents, and resources to live a purpose-driven life by building a healthy, abundant, and equitable world. Mia, thank you so much for joining me today. You have a tagline of sorts on your bio that reads, "Committed to health and well-being, eliminating disparities, and encouraging personal growth and empowerment." I just absolutely love that. What does it mean to you, and how does it fit into your role at Pfizer?
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Whitney. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I love it when you asked about the tagline. So it actually started when I was pursuing my coaching certificate, and it was part of a marketing exercise. And it's three questions you can ask yourself in terms of what do you care about that you would just do anyway? What do you stand for, or what makes you angry? What would you like to change? And then the final thing is, what do you offer? What do you have to offer? And also, too, that can be stated in under 30 seconds. So those are the three things that I care about, really: health and well-being, eliminating disparities, and encouraging personal growth and empowerment. And throughout my career, I've been able to live by this mantra. And also, what I love about it too is it's not just from a career perspective, but it also helps making decisions, whether it's looking at a new job or a decision, or even recently when it felt like the 53rd day of October during this pandemic, just kind of looking at that, and it's like, okay, let's get on back into it. Let's go. So what I love about it is I get to do this every day. I get to work with advocates working towards public policies that improve access to medicines and eliminate barriers to treatment, and to encourage and assist people in sharing their stories and how certain public policies impact their lives.
Well, thank you. And I think, not everyone has a tagline in life, and I think it's a beautiful way to describe the things that you care about. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. There's so much that we could talk about that Pfizer has done, is doing, will do in the future. But we really are going to focus in on, of course, the COVID-19 response. And so, I just appreciate you sharing a lot of what's happening. I want to start by talking about the fact that Pfizer was founded in 1849 in Brooklyn, New York. And for 171 years, the company has really been changing and saving lives. So before we go into Pfizer's response to the pandemic, let's talk about the company's history as a biopharmaceutical leader. How has that long history prepared Pfizer to respond to the COVID-19 crisis?
Sure. I've got a story I'd like to share with you. So, more than 75 years ago, the US and British governments issued a challenge to the pharmaceutical industry, and that was to rapidly advance penicillin from a laboratory curiosity to medical use during World War II. So, although the science was discovered outside of Pfizer, it was our mission to collaborate to help address the urgent need, and the company contributed over 90% of the penicillin that went on shore during D-Day. So in the face of COVID-19, this call is more urgent than ever, and we aim to leave no stone unturned as we harness the full breadth and depth of our resources to address this crisis. And our goal today is to connect all members of the innovation ecosystem, from large pharmaceutical companies to the smallest biotech companies, government agencies, academic institutions, to commit to working together in addressing this crisis. In fact, our CEO, Albert Bourla, outlined a 5-point plan as a blueprint toward this goal, whereby Pfizer is committed to working as one team across the industry to harness our scientific expertise, technical skills, and manufacturing capabilities. And I'll just give you a quick, the 5-point plan consists of sharing our tools and insights, marshaling our people, applying our drug development expertise, offering our manufacturing capabilities, and improving future rapid response. So it all starts with our peers in the industry working together as one team and partnering closely with federal agencies to rapidly bring forward a vaccine to help treat this virus.
Well, you helped me transition so beautifully into the next part of our conversation. And here's what I'll tell you from an outsider's perspective. I obviously am not in the biotech, biopharma industry, but what I'm hearing across so many organizations, especially in Maryland, is this desire to partner and the need and understanding that that's what's really going to advance a vaccine. And so, there's like this, the whole world is watching as there's an incredible sense of urgency to create a vaccine. Earlier this spring, Pfizer announced a partnership with BioNTech. The press release reads, just in part, the collaboration aims to rapidly advance multiple COVID-19 vaccine candidates into human clinical testing based on BioNTech's proprietary mRNA vaccine platforms, with the objective of ensuring rapid worldwide access to the vaccine if approved. The collaboration will leverage Pfizer's broad expertise in vaccine research and development, regulatory capabilities, and global manufacturing and distribution network. Mia, what can you tell us about this partnership with BioNTech, and how are the human clinical trials performing thus far?
Sure, thanks, Whitney. And you're right, there is an incredible sense of urgency. Right before we had our call, I was just on a call with pharma with our CEO, the CEO of Sanofi, and the executive vice president of J&J, and just hearing from these 3 different companies about what they're doing, and just, everyone, all hands on deck working to create a vaccine for COVID-19. So you're right, it's everyone's working together and the urgency is there. But as you mentioned, the collaboration between BioNTech's mRNA technology portfolio and Pfizer's broad expertise is really working together. And BioNTech and Pfizer are committed to develop this vaccine with the preclinical and clinical data at the forefront of all decision making, and to maintain the high quality and safety standards we apply to every clinical trial will be maintained. You mentioned there's a sense of urgency, but I just want to reiterate that safety standards and clinical trials will be maintained. So the candidate is an mRNA-based vaccine, which uses synthetic messenger RNA to help the body immunize itself against the virus, and can potentially be developed and manufactured more quickly than traditional vaccines. BioNTech and Pfizer recently announced initial data from the most advanced of 4 investigational vaccine candidates from their mRNA-based vaccine program. And overall, the initial data demonstrated that the vaccine candidate could be administered in a dose that is well tolerated and generated dose-dependent immunogenicity. And I need to say this, though, although we're very optimistic, the candidate remains under clinical study and is not currently approved for distribution anywhere in the world. However, if the ongoing studies are successful and all the stars align and the vaccine candidate receives regulatory approval, The company expects to manufacture up to 100 million doses by the end of 2020 and potentially more than 1 billion doses by the end of 2021. In that event, BioNTech and Pfizer will work jointly to distribute the potential COVID-19 vaccine worldwide.
Yeah, and that was part of the update just from last Wednesday on July 1st. And so, how exciting and hopeful it is to think that by the end of 2020, there just may be a vaccine. And the thought of potentially up to 1.2 billion doses by the end of 2021, I think it gives a lot of people hope that it will be here sooner, even though that feels like a long time away. We've read stories and heard news reports that the speed of which vaccines are going to human trials is unheard of. Much like this pandemic, it's unprecedented. What steps would Pfizer have to take in order to mass produce this particular candidate if it is approved as a vaccine for COVID-19?
Sure. Well, I tell you, one of the things that I'm so proud to be a part of this industry. And in terms of what steps could we take to mass produce this, we're already actively scaling up our manufacturing capacity and distribution infrastructure at risk to support global supply in response to the pandemic. We have the potential to supply millions of vaccines by the end of 2020, as I mentioned, of course, subject to technical success and development of the program and approval by regulatory authorities, and then rapidly scale up to capacity to produce hundreds of millions of doses in 2021. So again, it's that forefront investment at risk with our manufacturing facilities to get ready to just ramp it up if it were approved.
Well, we have a great graphic on the screen here that talks a little bit more in detail or demonstrates more in detail about your manufacturing capabilities. So it sounds like you guys are getting the ducks lined up, so to speak, to get ready to produce some things. So we'll stick on that word of hope, right? I think everyone needs to just be very hopeful. Mia, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to read another announcement that came out on June 18th, and this has to do with the Pfizer Foundation. And it reads in part, as part of our mission of providing humanitarian aid in times of crisis, the Pfizer Foundation is proud to partner with the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, an organization at work in over 40 countries and over 20 US cities, helping people whose lives and livelihoods are shattered by conflict and disaster to survive, recover, and gain control of their future. The IRC has decades of experience responding to urgent health situations, providing funding and offering integrative immunization, family planning, and other basic health services that are often at risk of disruption in vulnerable communities during crisis. It goes on to say, the Pfizer Foundation's work with the IRC is part of a larger commitment to humanitarian relief at home and across the globe to help high-risk communities receive the funds, medicine, and expertise necessary to meet priority health needs. You and I have talked offline about the fact that this pandemic has really shined a spotlight on the socioeconomic disparities within communities across the world, and certainly right here in the United States. How is the Pfizer Foundation stepping in and stepping up to help these communities?
Sure. So I'm really proud of our company. Pfizer and the Pfizer Foundation have committed $40 million or $40 million in medical and charitable cash grants to help combat the global health effects of COVID-19 in the US and around the world. And this donation addresses the urgent needs of partners who are working to slow the spread of the virus within communities and strengthen vulnerable healthcare systems across future public health threats. The Foundation conducted an evaluation of COVID-19 response priority needs, as well as resource capabilities and gaps among partner organizations. Pfizer, the Pfizer Foundation, and our partners will continue to monitor and assess the evolving nature of the pandemic and the impact of these grants. So looking at it, we partnered with some of the states that were really impacted when the pandemic first happened, such as New York, is where, our headquarters is located. Also looking at Louisiana, some of the other states that were really particularly hard hit when the pandemic hit. We also looked at patient groups, rural organizations, multicultural groups, and healthcare organizations that were on the front lines and most impacted by the crisis, such as the emergency physicians, the Black nurses, just to give an idea of just some of the groups that we were looking at, those who were particularly impacted, those who are on the front lines, and just helping to, in some cases, keep some of the organizations, some of the patient organizations afloat, because a lot of people don't realize, but when the pandemic happened, a lot of the funding mechanisms for some of the nonprofits kind of went out of sync with everyone focusing on the crisis. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and I'm really proud of the Pfizer and the foundation for stepping up, as we always do, to help out with these organizations.
As I mentioned at the beginning, this is my 10th interview, in which I started these interviews back in, I think it was the last week in March. And most of the weeks I've had the pleasure of speaking with business professionals like yourself. I've done some nonprofit interviews, but I'm always impressed by the level of giving and generosity from our corporations here in Maryland. It's overjoying to hear about the sheer amount of money that they are funneling back into these communities who desperately need the help. And so Pfizer and the Pfizer Foundation are doing that. I mean, $40 million in a very short amount of time, giving back to communities. I think that's an incredible gift. And it's something that you and your organization should be really proud of. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And Whitney, if I may, something else along these lines that I'm also proud of is that the company supports and encourages volunteering. And even though, social distancing is something that, we're all cognizant of and doing our part in, we're encouraged to volunteer as we see fit, in a socially responsible way. And the company will match. So if we were to volunteer our time, that's one thing. But if volunteer funds, the company will match those funds to the organization where we contribute. So that's something too I'm very proud of.
Yeah, and that's not just in light of COVID-19. That's something that Pfizer, from what you and I have talked about, has done for years.
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about partnerships, and I have your website has amazing resources, so I was able to gather so much information. And on May 26th, there was an article, and I want to read a little bit about that. It says, fighting back against a global pandemic requires cooperation, collaboration, and teamwork. As part of Pfizer's broader COVID-19 response, we are proud to partner with Direct Relief, a humanitarian aid organization dedicated to improving the health and lives of people affected by poverty or emergencies across all 50 states and 80 countries. Pfizer has always been committed to deploying our resources in times of crisis, and we leveraged our long-standing partnership with Direct Relief to help alleviate some of the issues facing hospitals overwhelmed by an influx of patients. So Mia, I know that this is just one of many partnerships that Pfizer and the Pfizer Foundation has across the globe, but can you tell our listeners about this particular partnership with Direct Relief and what has been donated to hospitals across our country in an effort to support the influx of COVID-19 patients?
Sure, sure. So as you mentioned, we believe it's our responsibility to help protect the most vulnerable from this disease, and we're putting our full weight and our resources behind a comprehensive COVID-19 response. We've donated tens of thousands of units of antibiotics and vasopressor therapies for Direct Relief's COVID-19's ICU pushbacks. These modules have been endorsed by the Society of Critical Care Medicine and have enabled treatment for thousands of hospitalized patients with serious COVID-19 infections suffering from bacterial infections such as pneumonia. Outside the US, grant funding will be provided to international NGOs and partners that support direct COVID-19 relief and longer-term healthcare system strengthening. More than $1 million in grant funding has been provided to established partners, including Direct Relief, but also Project Hope and the International Medical Corps. And also, I'd just like to give you some more examples of some of the donations we provided. So as part of the our immediate response to COVID-19, in China, the Pfizer Foundation provided $500,000 in grants to support the provision of supplies to frontline healthcare workers. In Italy, our Pfizer affiliate is making available free of charge 2.5 million euros worth of medicines and vaccines that can be used in prevention and management of serious consequences of COVID-19 in impacted regions. And in the US, the Pfizer Foundation has provided a $500,000 grant to the International Medical Corps. This funding will support the provision of urgently needed supplies to frontline medical workers. It will provide training and also help with deploying medical strike teams. In addition, Pfizer's donated select antibiotics to Direct Relief to manage complications related to COVID-19. We're also responding to patient and healthcare provider needs during this unprecedented time by evolving our U.S. Patient Assistance Program and donating additional critical medicines and vaccines in the U.S. and around the world. So we're really it's a comprehensive effort, all hands on deck in the U.S. and ex-U.S. So really, really proud of the company.
Well, and you say it so beautifully. There's just no way that any one organization, any one country can do it alone. And it takes partnerships, it takes strategic thinking, it takes a group of like-minded minds to progress something like this forward and to do good across the globe. And you guys are certainly leading the way in that. And I would venture to say that probably couldn't all be done unless you had amazing employees. And here's what I'll say about the image on the screen. This was an image that was taken before masks were required. And so this is a slightly older image from Pfizer. I know that you guys have put into place things to take care of your employees. So let's talk for a few minutes about your employees at Pfizer. What protocols have been put in place across the company to keep people safe while still moving forward on the important work that you all are doing as a whole?
Sure. I tell you, the safety of our colleagues is paramount, and giving the public health information sources such as the World Health Organization, the CDC, we're taking appropriate steps to protect our colleagues and contractors who work in our facilities. We've implemented a comprehensive preparedness plan to control our site operations. These actions include reducing the workforce at our sites to only those who are critical to producing medicines, instituting social distancing, and implementing enhanced cleaning procedures for the sites. We also have systems and action tracking capabilities to allow colleagues at our sites, either physically or virtually, to stay connected and work collaboratively while maintaining social distance guidelines. And while we're talking about our employees, I just want to give a shout out to our manufacturing and supply chain professionals who've been working non-stop to ensure that the global supply of Pfizer medicines continues to be available to patients, and we're very, very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, with almost 100,000 employees worldwide, that's a lot of people to be responsible for while still maintaining your critical missions. And the supply chain folks and vaccine developers and scientists, I mean, they are so vital to not just the COVID-19 response, but what Pfizer does so well as a whole. And so we certainly applaud them as well. And thank you for sharing more about them. There are so many ways to stay up to date. And here's what I love about this interview. You guys have a podcast, and it's called the Antigen Podcast. And season 2 is all about COVID-19. So how incredibly cool for a pharmaceutical company to have a podcast available. And I would encourage people to check it out, stay up to date on the science and and what's happening from Pfizer. Of course, you all have a designated COVID-19 website, and I know that you are active as an organization on social media and working to keep people updated, and blogs and articles, and there's so much information out there for people to consume. And so I want to encourage all of our listeners to just stay up to date as to how Pfizer is developing this vaccine. Mia, we're coming to a close, but I wonder if there's anything else that you would like to share with us regarding Pfizer's COVID-19 response.
Sure. I just like to say that we're all in this together. And while there's no vaccine against COVID-19 yet, I would encourage everyone to do their part to stay safe and stop the spread of the virus, including keeping up to date with your vaccines, whether it's your children or you as an adult, wearing face coverings, hand washing, and physical distancing. And in the end, with all of us doing our part, science will win. And so with that, I also just want to, again, thank our employees, also our advocates, the patients and the healthcare providers who are doing their parts, the researchers, everyone's, and I can't say this enough, we really are all in this together. And I truly, truly believe that science will win.
And so I like to end my conversations and these interviews with the one, not that there will be just one, but in your mind, is there one really positive thing that you believe will come out of this crisis?
I do. I believe that people will see and recognize our unity, our shared oneness, and that we are all in this together, and how much we have in common, and that when it comes to fighting something like COVID-19 or hate or bigotry or anything, that we can all do more together than we can apart, and that when we keep that in mind, keep the end goal in mind, we really can make miracles happen.
Well, I don't think I could say anything better than that. Mia, thank you so much for your time. You've been very giving and wonderful to work with. Thank you to all of the Pfizer employees for what you're doing. And we certainly hope that a vaccine is around the corner. Mia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Whitney. My pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening. I will be bringing you another interview in a few weeks with a Maryland business who continues to lead the way through the crisis. And as always, I encourage you to check out the Maryland Chamber's website as we continue to bring valuable information to Maryland businesses, a lot of resources available, wonderful interviews like this, as well as ongoing webinars. So I continue to wish you good health and safety, especially as you travel this summer, and we will look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day.